Hello everyone, welcome to StudyTravel TV Live, a show of news, statistics and opinion. I'm Matthew Knott, news editor of StudyTravel Magazine.
Hello everyone, I'm Nicola Hancock, editor of StudyTravel Magazine. Before we get started, for the best viewing experience, please put the call in side by side speaker view. You will see an icon in the top right hand corner where you can select the view.
We are delighted to welcome you all today to this episode of StudyTravel TV Live. In today's broadcast, we'll begin with a news story and then be joined by our guest this week, Julia Richter, Managing Director at FDSV in Germany, and Gabriela Ardito, CEO of VCE International in Argentina and President of the Argentine Study Abroad Association.
If you have any questions for the presenters or guest speakers or comments on any of the stories, please do post them in the chat box below and we will read them out at the end. A big thank you to the sponsor of this episode, Felka.
Okay, so let's start with our first story. And StudyTravel Magazine's Global Agency Survey on 2022 business trends has been released, showing a strong recovery for the agency sector. The 183 agents participating in the survey sent 67,460 students overseas last year, compared with 14,404 in the previous year, a 445% increase.
After a 2021 restricted by quarantine periods and travel restrictions, the UK restored its position as the most popular language destination in 2022, with a 32% share, followed by Ireland on 17%, Australia and Canada both on 9%, and Spain with a 6% share.
The UK was also the most popular for higher education, accounting for 35% of clients in this sector, followed by Canada on 21% and Australia on 9%. The UK and Canada were the joint most popular destinations for secondary study.
The language sector accounted for 67% of students sent in the 2022 survey, up from 60% in the previous year. The junior sector in particular recovered to represent 25% of bookings in 2022, compared with only 13% in the previous year.
In other findings, word of mouth remained the most common recruitment method for agencies. Agent conferences were the predominant means of meeting new schools. Average commission rates for secondary and higher education programs increased to 17%, and the share of host family accommodation for language students declined from 56% in 2021 to only 47% last year.
German association FDSV also recently released its member survey data on the outbound language market in 2022, finding that sales were on average 11.3% higher than in 2019. English was the dominant language, but share dropped to 70%, mostly at the expense of Spanish. The UK also lost share to account for only 35% of bookings, compared with 50% in 2019. Malta and Spain were beneficiaries.
Okay, so at this point, we'd like to welcome our guests this week, Julia and Gabriela.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Nicola.
Hi, Julia.
Hi, Julia.
Welcome.
Hello,
Hi,
Matt, and hello, Nicola.
Hi, Gabby. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Hi, Gabriela.
Hi, Julia. Thank
Thank
you.
you for the invitation.
Pleasure, always a pleasure. So, Gabby, if we could begin with you. Would you agree with these findings for about 2022 with, for the agency market in Argentina?
Yes, Matt, definitely. In fact, the outbound language market has been growing steadily, particularly since we were removed from the red list of countries. You probably remember that list of countries. We couldn't enter the UK until October 2021. So even though that winter, winter for us, January, February 2022, implied a huge loss of money for many agencies in our country. I mean, some of them started working and everything turned out to be different from July 22nd onwards. The demand has been growing steadily since then. And according to our latest research, 55% of the agencies that took part in the poll foresee that trends will remain the same. And almost 40% believe that there will be even more demand in 2023. So, I mean, that is the result. And unlike in Germany, English still holds the lead in Argentina.
Thanks, Gabby. And Julia, we have given the headline findings of the FDSV data there. Were there any surprises in the 2022 research?
Yes, Nicola, there were. We didn't actually expect an increase of 3.6% participants, and we had 11.3% in sales. This is actually something very positive, which we didn't expect as the pandemic lasts until the end of May last year. On the other hand, it didn't surprise me that UK actually lost about 30% and Malta gained around 30% and Ireland 10%. Europe actually in general was went quite well. And we would love to send more students actually to the UK, but the problem really is that the entry procedure is now much more complicated actually, and it takes a lot of time. For example, if you travel by bus, documents of all passengers has to be checked, and this is often the reason why we have, huge delays in arriving in the schools, for example. Another thing is obtaining a passport is expensive, and it takes up to 3 months. So really, students have to get themselves organized well in advance if they would like to travel to the UK. And unfortunately, there's no more work experience or volunteering possible without a visa. So people interested in volunteering or work experience, they have to apply for a visa. And a visa for non-EU students are often declined. This is actually a problem, especially for school groups. As you know, the list of travelers, as it used to be before Brexit, applies no longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And for one thing I would mention, well, our last show, we discussed this topic in detail with English UK. Also, just today, I've sent a message to all European agents in the StudyTravel network that English UK and other tourism associations are actually trying to gather data from European agencies about the impact on group travel to the UK, with which they're going to lobby the government. So any European agents that are watching, I would urge you to complete that survey, and they're hoping for a solution, a group travel solution. We're staying with you, Julia. How about the inbound market? StudyTravel Magazine's Global Agencies survey, Germany accounted for around 4% of all of the language bookings, which was an identical ratio to the previous year and a little bit higher than in 2019, actually. How was last year for your German language school members?
It actually was a quite good year, to be honest, Matt, but according to our internal survey, which we didn't publish this year, the numbers of students decreased by 50%. So it's quite a lot. I think it's actually due to the pandemic and the entry restrictions, which lasted actually until the end of May last year, so for quite a long time. And when you then have to apply for a visa, it takes another weeks or months sometimes to finally get started. And that was actually the main reason. Some other news regarding nationality mix, for example, the majority of students came from Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Turkey. I mean, all the other nationalities as well, but I mean, these were the most, not important, but I mean, number-wise, the highest nationalities we counted. And our school members reported that 2023 started actually very well, and the numbers are very close to those of 2019. And we also actually expect a very successful year, 2024. The forecast is already very good, and pre-bookings are already there. And if there's nothing, major coming up, it'll be a quite good year, this and the following year.
Okay, that's very good news. I think you've answered our next question there. So we'll jump on to our next story. Next up, Gabby has been kind enough to survey members of the Argentine Study Abroad Association, or ARSAA, as she mentioned a moment ago, as an exclusive for StudyTravel Magazine.
35% of ARSAA members expect sales to increase in 2024, while 55% anticipate next year's sales to be consistent with 2023. Just 10% expect a decrease.
In terms of courses being commercialized, 3/4 of the ARSAA agencies are promoting language courses, 55% are selling junior programs, 35% are offering high school programs, and 30% promote higher education. Smaller percentages offer work and study and volunteering products.
In terms of challenges, ARSAA found that 55% of members have encountered problems in finding affordable flight tickets, and a similar ratio had problems with making payments abroad. 1/4 cited problems with finding suitable accommodation, and other issues cited were lack of communication with school partners due to staff turnover and securing visas.
Okay, so Gabby, thank you very much for arranging this content for us. What more can you tell us about this research?
Well, regarding higher education, Canada is still the top destination, particularly among those who seek immigration opportunities. Also, European countries such as Germany, Italy, and Spain are gaining popularity among those who have dual citizenship. The trend, of course, goes in tune with the socio-political and economic crisis we are currently undergoing. I'm sure you know about this. The UK is still the most popular language destination, followed by the US. And this applies not only to adult language courses, but also junior programs. Ireland, Australia, and New Zealand are popular among those who seek work while they improve their English skills. I wish we could do that in the UK as well, but we can't. High school programs still on demand in Canada, but there is also an interest in the UK now, particularly because our students can attend high school without applying for a student visa for a period of up to 6 months. The study permit for Canada may take up to 16 weeks, so that is quite hard. And regarding the choice of marketing strategies, most of the agencies have chosen word of mouth, followed by social media, particularly Instagram and also TikTok. Not so many, but TikTok is becoming prominent here.
It's all about TikTok, isn't it? Julia, how is the outbound market in Germany currently? Would you agree with those projections for the year ahead?
Yes, I absolutely agree. The feedback from our outbound members is very positive. Most of them really expect 2023 to be at least as good as the year before the pandemic. So we'll have another good year, hopefully. And for 2024, the forecasts are also comparable to those of 2019 or even better. In regards to problems or challenges, yes, our members have similar problems actually in finding suitable flights because they're extremely expensive, especially for short prior bookings. And our member partner schools have problems in finding enough suitable host families. And the schools actually have difficulties in finding enough teachers. So actually the same problems as Gabriela just pointed out. We also have these kind of difficulties with our inbound members. And besides the problems I've already mentioned, they have to cope with the long processing time and the refusal of visa. It's a huge problem, especially for example, from Cuba, Nigeria, China, or Russia. So this really keeps a lot of students off the planned starting date, which is a pity. Our outbound members still have the problems with the complicated entry to the UK, as I just mentioned before, which we hopefully solve, step by step, as Matt just told us. And I've also signed a couple of papers to, get everything started in regards to the school groups as it was before Brexit. So hopefully we can really work on this issue a little bit more intensively. On top, prices increased around 10 to 15%. Also, flight tickets are very hard to get, and they are very expensive. So we'll see how we can process, especially short prior bookings. This is a major challenge.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few challenges, but some optimism in the sector is what I'm taking from that. And Gabby, could you explain a little bit more about the currency issue that we mentioned there?
That's a bit hard.
Yeah.
Well, we basically
what's the problem?
Yeah, we for years, yeah, we have a system which does not allow people to transfer funds abroad unless we pay 3 government taxes that basically duplicate the cost of anything that you buy outside Argentina. For instance, if a student needs to pay £1,000 academic fees to a certain school in the UK or anywhere else in the world, they will need to pay one tax of 45%, another one of 25%, and the last one of 35% on top of the total amount, which is crazy. So instead of 1,000, the student ends paying £2,000. It's chaotic. Yeah, this happens because we do not have one fixed price for the foreign currency. There is a legal exchange rate and an unofficial one, which is a real one, of course. It is almost impossible to buy foreign currency at the official rate in Argentina. So people must resort to the black market. That's what happens basically. And
how are agents and students navigating around this? They just have to pay the fee, or is the...
Yeah, they have to pay twice as much, and then they try to recover part of the taxes. You cannot recover all of them,
right,
but basically maybe half of it can be recovered. If not, students sometimes travel with funds in their bags and pay on arrival, or sometimes they have friends or relatives who have bank accounts in Europe or in the US, and they can pay from abroad. Those are the possibilities.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's have a look at another story. And next up, the British Council has examined the future of English language learning in a major new piece of research. The Future of English Global Perspectives book, released last month, builds on 2 previous publications from 1997 and 2006, and is based on analysis of previous predictions and roundtable sessions with industry stakeholders around the world.
The headline finding was that English will continue as the most sought after language in the next decade and beyond, driven primarily by its role in enhancing job potential and supported by its dominant use in technology, higher education, and social media.
The authors also argued that although English as a medium of instruction in higher education is growing in many non-traditional, non-native English-speaking countries, partly as a means to attract international students, English for use in primary education in those countries is being rejected.
Other findings included that teachers will remain essential for the foreseeable future, despite the advances in artificial intelligence and auto-translate technology, that private and public sectors should collaborate more effectively to improve access to English language learning, and that assessments need to remain relevant for study, work, and social interactions.
In other predictions, the authors said that there will be a diversification of English for specific purpose programs and continuing competition for the UK from non-traditional ELT destinations as well as the traditional ones.
So we mentioned earlier in the show, Julia, that the share of English declined in 2022. So do you agree that demand for English will remain strong due to those factors that we just mentioned, such as employment prospects, higher education, technology, and social media?
Absolutely. English will continue to be the most important language for German students and employees at the same time. The reason I think for the decrease in the German market in 2022 were the strict entry requirements to English-speaking countries. Therefore, other languages as Spanish, Matt said it before already, and French picked up in numbers, so quite strong. By that time, it was actually easier to enter Spain or France for a language course instead of the UK or other English-speaking countries. In my opinion, English is still the most important language. I mean, for global trade, for cultural understanding, for international employment. And it is a great communication tool, as you can see it actually today. It's also important for study, for work. It gives, you better job perspectives and I mean, lots of other positive features I think you can relate to the English language. Regarding the use of new technologies and social media, I think online courses, AI or language apps can certainly be combined with a language course abroad. But for me, a language trip is still the perfect combination, excuse me, of learning a language, experiencing the culture of the country, and to exchange with the people.
Thank you. And one of the trends that was identified or predicted was that there would be more demand for ESP, English for specific purpose programs, and a diversification of those programs. Do you see that demand already happening in your markets, Gabby, in Argentina?
Yes, I mean, we get more professionals asking for specific courses. I mean, not only teachers, but also lawyers, architects, those in the field of medical sciences. We see a tendency of that sector growing here in Argentina.
How about in Germany, Julia?
Excuse me, Matt, I just missed out something. I was coughing. Thank you so much. Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah,
again?
the demand for ESP, for English for specific purpose programs in Germany. Do you already see that sort of growing as a niche sector?
It was always there. I mean, you're sure. It's a niche market, but again, it used to be always part of the types of courses we offered, either for outbound or inbound equally. In regards to inbound, we see definitely more requests for German, for medicines, or some other, special purpose. This is definitely a growing sector. In regards to inbound and outbound, we have lots of requests for lawyers, for specific business courses, all kinds of courses. But this is not new, actually. This used to be always there.
Thanks, Julia. And Gabby, as a teacher yourself, how do you feel about this kind of technology, this AI technology that's appearing, translation tools and such? Does it concern you at all?
As long as, I mean, we teachers can use it to reduce our efforts, there is nothing wrong with the use of technology. The pandemic has proved that there is substantial amount of everyday work that can be easily done by the click of a mouse. So we can now find blended programs, entire online and hybrid programs. Education has evolved into something that, I mean, thanks to technology, we need to, we need to adapt to technology, but we must always remember that the human factor is key, is a key element in all learning environments. We are social beings, so we can have the support of technology, but we always need the person and the face-to-face interaction and the socialization that any learning environment implies. It doesn't worry me. No. I think we should rely on technology, but I mean, having precautions and taking limits.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll finish with a roundup of some of the other news stories that we've covered since the last STtv live show a couple of weeks ago.
In the Netherlands, the government has outlined plans to control international student flows, including with national targets and the ability for ministers to intervene to halt recruitment when necessary. Also more nuanced capacity limits on courses and prioritization of the Dutch language. Pressure on accommodation and teacher workloads were cited as reasons to limit increases in international students.
In Nepal, the Ministry of Education has backed down on plans to only issue no objection certificates that are needed for study abroad to degree level programs, following pressure from agents and industry stakeholders. However, under the new stipulations, students heading overseas must be high school graduates and must attend a government approved institution, measures that the sector still opposes.
Australia has launched a consultation on a new migration system. The government is expected to introduce tighter entry rules for international students, greater regulation of agents and educators, but also a clearer pathway to permanent residency for highly skilled graduates.
Atlas Language School, an ELT provider based in Ireland and Malta, announced the acquisition of Clare Language School, a year-round provider in Ennis, County Clare, which is a specialist of junior programs.
Nord Anglia Education has announced a partnership with US-based sports specialist IMG Academy, following the acquisition of IMG by the parent private equity company of Nord Anglia. Nord Anglia schools will have access to IMG's sports curriculum and access to exclusive programs.
PGL, the UK headquartered provider of residential activity camps, has opened a new centre in North Yorkshire, offering programs to domestic and international students and groups.
And lastly, Spanish language provider On Spain has rebranded as Maestro Mio and moved to a new city centre location in Malaga.
Okay, Gabby, what do you think about those developments in the Netherlands? We've reported on so many destinations recently that are actively looking to increase their international students and have got strategies and so on. So it's quite unusual to hear about a country looking to actually limit the intake. Are you concerned that this might happen elsewhere?
Well, of course, this depends on the size of some cities in certain countries. The Netherlands, I mean, particularly in Amsterdam, in the Amsterdam area, I believe the problem could be partly solved by placing international students in less populated areas until new accommodations facilities can be provided. It's not a good idea to just cut the influx of students directly. I mean, it's like too dramatic. I remember we saw a similar situation in Ireland at the beginning of 2021, when almost all language schools in Dublin kept accepting students without taking into account that they wouldn't be able to find lodging. It also happened in London as well. I mean, after the pandemic, it was almost impossible to find homestay facilities. So the current developments in the Netherlands may not be in tune with internationalization processes. But I mean, it is clear they are doing it to tackle an existing problem and also to mitigate future risks. They need to do something because otherwise the situation gets under control.
Yeah, it's a good point. And indeed, some of the universities in more regional parts of the Netherlands said, actually, we've got accommodation here. So they were calling for a more sort of flexible approach to the situation.
Exactly.
Julia, we reported on a couple of new centres and acquisitions there. Is there much activity in Germany in terms of new locations or new summer centres or even acquisition news?
Fortunately, I don't currently know anything about takeover plans in Germany or in the German language industry. During the pandemic, we have unfortunately lost 4 outbound members who stopped completely offering language courses abroad, including LAL, which nobody really expected. Now, actually, everything is more or less stabilized after the pandemic. And as far as I know, there are even no new locations or new centers being established. There are also news about acquisition in between our school members either. So luckily, we didn't lose any inbound member during the pandemic. So let's keep fingers crossed that it stays like this. And I hope it stays the way and we don't face any new major challenge which finally lead to takeovers or bankruptcies.
Indeed, thank you.
Okay, well, I think that brings us up to date with all of the news this week. At this point, we'll open up to the audience to see if there are any questions for our guests or for the presenters as well. These can be on any of the stories or topics that we have discussed. And just while we wait to see if there are any questions that come in, perhaps we could ask you about your respective association's activities. Gabby, what does ARSAA have planned for the next few months?
Well, we are having our next AGM in September during the ILF Fair Buenos Aires. And we are currently having talks with the Argentine embassy. I mean, this was yesterday. It's really fresh news because they would like ARSAA to start preparing Argentine universities for the promotion of programs. You know, here in Argentina, we are used to doing exchange. Universities sign bilateral agreements, but now there is a tendency, and universities at the local level want to start promoting their courses abroad, so that Argentina becomes a destination more than a market, and this is good. Yeah, it's good. It's good news.
So they want you to work on the inbound promotion.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And similarly for you, Julia, what's FDSV got planned for the coming year?
We've had our HGM in Bielefeld at RUF Jugendreisen 2 weeks ago. So we were actually discussing a couple of themes like sustainability. We are going to work closer with Jonathan from Green Standard Schools. That's the plan for the end of the year. We've built up a closer cooperation with YALC. This is also quite new, and we even think about you maybe sharing our independent and advisory board members to do the, the school checks or rechecks, let's say, in Germany for the next couple of years. So this is on the agenda. We'll see how plans develop for both of us.
Great, thank you. Well, it sounds like we've got some very shy audience members that don't want to ask any more questions. So
covered everything.
We have. It's been a very, very thorough show. Well, that looks like it's the end of our audience Q&A, which brings us to the end of this week's StudyTravel TV Live.
You'll be able to find a recording of this broadcast from tomorrow, as well as all the past episodes on the StudyTravel TV Live page, which is under the magazine section on the StudyTravel Network, as you can see on the slide there. And that's it for today. We'd like to say a big thank you to our guests. Gabriela, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Julia, thank you for joining us again and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Nicola and Matt.
Pleasure. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you all again.
And thank you again to our sponsor this week, Felka, and thank you to everyone for watching. Goodbye.